The first thing the galaxy did after the sneeze was panic incorrectly and at maximum volume. Within seconds of the shrine's vaporization, every sensor array in the chamber went berserk. Gravitational ripple alarms shrieked. Energy weapon early warning systems auto-triggered across 3 neighboring star systems. Ancient war oracles buried under moon temples woke up screaming about the breath of extinction. The alien envoy, still blinking dust out of all 7 of his eyes, transmitted a single emergency code with shaking appendages. They have spoken. That was all the confirmation anyone needed. Across the Empire, admirals who hadn't stood up quickly in centuries were suddenly sprinting. Fleet formations broke protocol and bolted for deep space. Generational war plans, etched into titanium scripture, were shredded in minutes. One panicked strategist kept yelling that human diplomacy had skipped the threatening phase and gone directly to demonstration of extinction-tier weapons via facial orifice. Meanwhile, back in the shattered diplomatic hall, the human delegation was frozen in horrified silence as bits of formerly holy architecture settled like cosmic dandruff. The intern, Steve, was already apologizing. Wow, I'm so sorry. The filters on the station are really dry, he said, holding out a wad of tissues like a peace offering. The envoy recoiled so hard he nearly phased into the floor. To the assembled alien scholars, the white tissues were unmistakable, biological containment patches for a weapon that clearly leaked reality-breaking force. Several fainted. One began quietly rewriting holy texts in real time. On the Imperial Command Network, the sneeze audio was isolated for analysis. A brave analyst ran it through 1,000,000 filters, compression passes, and protective noise dampeners. The waveform still shattered 6 lab instruments and gave the analyst a nosebleed. They classified it immediately as Class 0 vocal armament, a weapon with no known upper limits and no safe exposure duration. Emergency legislation banned the sound under penalty of instant planetary evacuation. Black market versions appeared within hours anyway, labeled as human war chant, uncut. Every time a frightened civilian listened to it without shielding, alarms went off 3 systems away. Back on Earth's feed, diplomats were desperately trying to de-escalate. It was just a sneeze, the human ambassador insisted. It's a reflex, a minor biological glitch. It happens when we inhale dust. The translation AIs struggled with this. Dust triggered involuntary extinction discharge, they rendered. Several alien admirals quietly resigned on the spot. The galaxy interpreted the ongoing human confusion as a calculated psychological attack. Feigned ignorance following overwhelming demonstration. A classic terror doctrine, strike without warning, then act as if nothing happened. The fact that the humans were offering bottled water and nasal spray only deepened the horror. Clearly, they carried containment tools for their own internal superweapons. Alien news cycles went feral. Why does their throat construct collapsed stars? Are humans born armed? Is every cough a war crime? On a distant moon base, a fleet commander ordered his forces to retreat after accidentally clearing his throat too loudly in a human-adjacent sector. He was not taking chances. Within 12 hours, the Galactic Safety Council voted, unanimously, to classify humanity as a natural disaster species. No declarations of war would ever be issued to them again. Any hostile action risked provoking another uncontrolled vocal release event. Trade envoys scrambled to Earth with gifts, treaties, and entire freighters of apology artifacts. Offers of mineral worlds, technology vaults, and raw star rights flooded in. Entire empires preemptively demilitarized along human-bordered space just to reduce the statistical chance of making a human nervous enough to inhale sharply. And through it all, the human delegation sat in a quiet conference room, drinking tea, while Steve was escorted to medical with the solemn gravity usually reserved for unstable warheads. Doctors confirmed what humanity had always known. It's allergies, one said. The alien observers classified this diagnosis as biological instability at extinction thresholds and requested copies of the pathology reports for strategic forecasting. By the end of the first galactic cycle after the sneeze, sanctions against Earth were quietly lifted. Old territorial disputes evaporated. Reparations were issued for wars humanity hadn't even been part of. Several rival alien empires signed mutual non-aggression pacts that included a single shared clause. Do not startle the humans. Humanity, entirely unaware it had just weaponized respiratory failure, simply wondered why the galaxy had suddenly become so polite. The moment the shrine vanished, the galaxy's crisis protocols tripped over themselves, trying to decide which apocalypse they were witnessing. Sensors across the diplomatic station registered an event without a proper classification. It wasn't kinetic. It wasn't thermal. It wasn't exotic radiation. It was simply force delivered by air that moments ago had been inside a human. That alone caused 3 separate science ministries to short-circuit in philosophical terror. The shrine, rated to withstand small stellar flares and ceremonial orbital bombardments, had not cracked, melted, or fractured. It had ceased to be where it was supposed to be. The alien envoy transmitted a single, trembling alert to his empire's high war choir, an ancient, one-use-only signal reserved for first contact extinction events. Across the spiral arm, war drums made of neutronium began to resonate. Within minutes, 12 alien fleets scrambled from ceremonial orbit into full combat spread, not because they intended to fight, but because doctrine demanded maximum dispersion when faced with unknown annihilation vectors. Every commander independently reached the same conclusion. Humanity had weaponized sound in a way that violated 3 physical laws and at least 1 religious covenant. Inside the ruined chamber, the human delegation had gone completely still, the way humans do when they collectively realize a minor social error has somehow escalated into a historical catastrophe. Steve, pale and horrified, kept whispering, "I'm so sorry. I didn't even feel that one coming." The translators rendered this as, the weapon fired without warning. Alien aides began screaming. On Imperial networks, the sneeze replayed under extreme isolation. Even processed through thousands of dampening layers, the waveform exhibited what the analyst described as aggressive indifference to safety limits. Instruments failed. A vibration priest declared that the universe itself had flinched. Someone suggested that the humans were not a species, but a walking weather event. Emergency edicts cascaded through alien space. Listening to unshielded human vocalizations was reclassified as reckless endangerment of reality. Civilians were advised to flee interior corridors if a human was detected inhaling too deeply. Masks manufactured for industrial plasma work were suddenly marketed as human proximity survival gear. Meanwhile, the human ambassador attempted de-escalation using what had worked for humanity for centuries: calm words and paperwork. It was an involuntary reflex, she explained gently. It's like a hiccup of the respiratory system. The translation AI, doing its very best, delivered this as, "Our bodies flash fire our weapon systems at random." That did not help. Alien military commentators began theorizing that human bodies were not biological at all, but weapon platforms disguised as mammals. The fact that the sneeze had been accompanied by an apology convinced them they were witnessing next-level psychological warfare, demonstrate ultimate dominance, then feign embarrassment to destabilize the enemy emotionally. The tissues made everything worse. When Steve pulled one out to wipe his nose, a dozen alien guards drew weapons in blind terror. Analysts flagged the object as a possible post-detonation sealing membrane, perhaps designed to prevent further dimensional breaches from the human's face cannon. The envoy fainted again and had to be revived with 4 different stimulants and a small prayer. On distant worlds, citizens watched the footage with mounting dread. The sacred Golden Shrine, colloquially known as the Unbreaking Witness, had been present at the signing of 6 interstellar wars and survived them all. It had never been damaged, not once in recorded cosmic history. Now it was being swept into a vacuum recycler because a human nose objected to airborne particulates. Religious riots broke out in 3 systems. Strategic councils went into existential meltdown. If a sneeze could erase a God-forged monument, what would a deliberate battle cry do? What would a cough do? What unspeakable cataclysm was locked behind whatever sound humans made when genuinely angry? The safest path was obvious. Immediate, unconditional capitulation. Diplomatic messages flooded toward Earth with frantic courtesy. Long-disputed borders were generously clarified in humanity's favor. Ancient tariffs were erased overnight. Several empires quietly transferred entire moons as goodwill gestures and prayed the humans would not notice the delay in thank-you messages and get irritated. A classified imperial memo concluded, "Humans do not escalate. They exhale." Back on the station, the human delegation was escorted to a reinforced comfort lounge rated for supernova-class stress, purely as a precaution. Tea was served in blast-rated cups. Steve was examined by alien medics wearing what appeared to be hazard suits designed for unstable quasars. Diagnosis: mild allergies. The medical report caused a panic on 3 levels of government. Allergy, they were told, was a condition in which the human immune system occasionally declared war on dust. This was interpreted as proof that the species fought internal conflicts with more violence than most empires used externally. By the end of the cycle, every hostile fleet had withdrawn to the edge of charted space. War budgets were rerouted into treaty printing. A new legal doctrine emerged in interstellar law: preemptive politeness toward humans. And humanity, completely unaware it had just redefined warfare using sinus pressure, kept wondering why everyone in the galaxy had suddenly become so unfathomably respectful. The surrender did not arrive with explosions or grand last stands. It arrived as paperwork. Mountainous, frantic, trembling paperwork, delivered faster than any invasion fleet humanity had ever detected. A flotilla of alien diplomatic couriers emerged at the edge of Earth's heliosphere in the universal formation for absolute submission while trying not to die nervously. Their ships were stripped of weapons, shields powered down, transponders broadcasting the same message on every known frequency. "We accept all terms. Please do not vocalize aggressively." Human defense networks went on alert for exactly 12 seconds before someone in protocol read the attached files and said, very softly, they're surrendering." Command rooms around the planet stared at screens full of glowing alien crests, ancient imperial seals, and legal language that kept using the word unconditional with the emotional weight of a panic attack. No one knew what to do. Emergency sessions of the United Nations convened with zero agenda and maximum confusion. Military leaders asked what battle humanity had apparently just won. Scientists demanded to know why several star empires were transferring asteroid belts as apology gifts. Economists quietly hyperventilated as alien markets collapsed into Earths without resistance. And in the middle of all of it, Steve was sitting in a clinic with an ice pack on his face, being told that galactic history now technically categorized him as a WMD. When the formal surrender ceremony finally took place at a neutral orbital station, the alien emperor approached with the posture of someone negotiating with a loaded superweapon that might sneeze again at any moment. His entire honor guard wore layered, sound-dampening armor. Quantum silence fields shimmered around the hall. Even footsteps had been muted. The human delegation walked in with notebooks. The emperor knelt, not slowly, not ceremonially, immediately. "I surrender not to your fleets," he declared, voice carefully calibrated to a whisper that would not disturb the surrounding vacuum seals. "Not to your weapons, not to your machines. I surrender to your physiology." There was an extended, very human pause. "Our what?" the human ambassador asked. "Your internal pressure dynamics," the emperor replied. "Your living shockwave engines. Your portable extinction organs." The ambassador scribbled lungs in the margin of her notebook. The surrender treaty was read aloud by a machine rather than any living being because no one trusted organic sound anymore. The clauses were comprehensive. No empire would ever initiate hostilities with humanity. No empire would ever deliberately surprise humanity. No empire would ever challenge humanity to ritual combat involving shouting. No empire would ever experiment with replicating the reflex. Humanity, utterly baffled, attempted for the 17th time to explain that sneezes were involuntary. The galaxy, collectively traumatized, agreed that this only made them worse. The logic was simple and terrifying. A species that could accidentally erase holy relics was either lying about its lack of control or genuinely so powerful that even its own body operated beyond its supervision. Both interpretations were unacceptable risks. Thus, humanity became the first civilization in recorded galactic history to achieve apex status by doing absolutely nothing on purpose. Trade agreements bloomed overnight. Alien corporations tripped over themselves to offer Earth-exclusive deals at your convenience, whenever your breathing permits. Formerly hostile regimes suddenly discovered deep cultural admiration for human art, human music, and especially human silence. Entire military budgets were rerouted into acoustic dampening research, just in case. New etiquette manuals were published across 100 worlds. Humans were to be approached slowly. No sudden noises, no dust clouds, no dramatic gestures that might provoke inhalation. The phrase, "bless you," became a forbidden liturgical term in several religions. On Earth, the consequences were quietly absurd. International conflict stalled because every opposing side worried that rapid escalation might somehow involve human observers, and therefore spontaneous atmospheric casualties. Peace talks everywhere began to include clauses about air filtration whenever humans were present. At one summit, negotiators paused for 30 minutes because a human delegate seemed like he was about to clear his throat, and no one wanted to risk history repeating itself. Steve was reassigned permanently to a climate-controlled office with triple-stage humidity control and a budget normally reserved for nuclear facilities. His new job title was officially Senior Atmospheric Stability Consultant. He received a commendation for services to planetary deterrence via nasal fortitude. He did not attend the ceremony where humanity was formally designated a Tier Z civilization, catastrophic by accident. Someone else accepted the plaque on his behalf. Years later, alien historians would argue endlessly about what the sneeze truly meant. Some claimed it was the first salvo of a weapon humanity had chosen not to fully reveal. Others believed it was proof that humans themselves did not yet understand the scale of what they carried within their own chests. A radical philosophical movement even arose that worshipped the human respiratory system as the closest thing the universe had ever produced to an honest God, unpredictable, automatic, and terrifyingly real. Humanity, for its part, mostly shrugged and focused on figuring out why the galaxy suddenly treated Earth like a cranky dragon that might level continents if someone rattled the wrong pebble. Diplomacy became very easy after that. No ultimatums, no threats, no brinkmanship, just carefully moderated air, very polite silence, and one unspoken universal truth echoing through every star system. Do not make the humans breathe sharply, because no one wanted to be the species that found out what a cough could do.